Hello, hello, hello.
Happy Thursday?
Is
Yes,
it
Thursday
Thursday?
already. Yeah. Oh man. So here we are again, going live, adding YouTube to the mix this time. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Actually telling people in advance that we're going live. So we might actually have someone show up, which would be awesome. If so, then please make sure and leave a comment, say hello, tell us where you are, ask a question throughout, because today we actually have a guest joining us. It's not just the two of us. Um, I think it's because you probably got a little tired of just talking to me, which is totally fine. No
I just
judgment.
wanted a pretty face to look at. No, just kidding.
What are you saying? No, that's great. Actually, so someone that we've gotten a chance to work with, it's Katelyn Johnson from SALT. Let me go ahead and pull her in. Hello, Katelyn.
Hello.
Hey guys.
So, Katelyn, I'll talk about you for a second. Maybe this would have been better before I brought you on, but it's Katelyn is the conference director for SALT, which is a community that serves local church creative leaders, I guess is the probably the better term. Um, Janelle and I are actually both leading workshops at this year's live SALT event, which I'm super excited about. But you attended our last brand messaging intensive a couple of months ago, and so we wanted to pull you in. It's easy for Janelle and me to talk about messaging and how important messaging is, but it's different to actually get to talk to someone who went through our process and did it on your own and hear your experience. So that's kind of the goal for today. Gosh, I used to use a lot of words. So I'm going to stop talking and just ask a question. Katelyn, why don't you tell us a little bit of just your story and then how you ended up in this position at SALT?
Yeah, well, it's really funny because this brand messaging intensive came at the perfect timing, I feel like, for my role in SALT. I recently got the job, moved to Nashville to work with this group. And what I loved about the position was not only am I conference director doing the logistics, making sure our annual conference gets pulled off every year, but one of the big goals was we want to start really focusing on marketing. They've always done some social media here and there and some email blasts, but it's never been a huge priority. And so I was like, great, I'm 5 months into the job. I hear about the brand messaging intensive and I'm like, okay, this is my chance. Like I can really learn how to do this well. And and really I feel like that's my story. I was 5 months into the role of SALT conference director, knowing I wanted to amp up our marketing for many different purposes within our organization. And I was just needing some guidance on how. I know some important things with marketing, but I don't know how to implement them sometimes. So it came at a perfect timing.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Did you? So you know things about marketing, and I know that means that you've probably studied messaging, since messaging is a big part of marketing, at least a little bit. Were there specific challenges that you were facing in just trying to communicate this new brand?
Yeah, definitely. We knew that story is important. We hear it all the time. Use story. It's so important. It's so good. But we're trying specifically to start a new webinar series that connects our community throughout the year. Again, we are a once a year annual conference that brings together church creatives and techs to like reignite their spark, just bring them together as a team, equip them to go back to their local church. But it's hard to like keep that community aspect once a year. And so we started this webinar series and we're like, okay, how do we promote it? We have stories, but we just didn't know how to connect the dots into getting people to show up to learn about equipment for live streaming or processes for evaluation. What does that have to do with the testimonials or the stories we have? We just didn't know how to line all that up into a good marketing message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with that, like leading into the BMI, the brand messaging intensive, throwing in our insider lingo, leading into the brand messaging intensive, did you have specific expectations of what you might be able to take away or learn?
Well, honestly, I walked in expecting to be super motivated, very inspired. I knew I would be taking a ton of notes, but I honestly thought maybe this is one of those workshops, where you take all these notes, but then you have to set aside time later in your week to actually do it. And so that was my expectation. You guys sent out some like really cool homework questions in advance, like some pre-day questions, which I love, but I really figured, oh, we'll work off of those and talk about them a little bit, but it's mostly going to be kind of more lecture-based note taking, and then I have to figure out when to put it into practice later. So that was my expectation walking in, and I'm happy to say that was not fully the case.
I don't like lecturing for 7 hours, so that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I did not fulfill that expectation. So
Right. Same. Well, that's where Janelle, you and I think, are very much on the same page. Like it
Mhm.
always bothers me to leave things at inspiration and just big ideas. Big ideas are great. We all need to be inspired. We all need to be motivated to take action, but then we've got to take action. And even like with the brand messaging intensive, that all day intensive, it does give you the time, not just to learn what you should do and then have to figure out when you're going to do it, because it'll never happen, but it gives you
Right.
the time to at least get started and hopefully get a good way through the process, if not all the way through developing it. So that's awesome. I'm really glad that that's how it worked out for you. So tell me a little bit about like what the day was actually like for you. Like what is that experience, I guess, of 7 hours of not lecturing, but of doing the whole intensive day?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't even know the right words to use. When we actually talked through questions and when you guys started making it conversational, I mean, right off the bat, it was, hey, unmute yourselves. We're going to talk. And it was more than just introduce yourself and tell us these little things. It was, okay, we're going to talk through the homework that we gave you guys before you came. Hey, we're going to teach you, you guys kind of went step by step. You had a little lesson and then we had the workshop time. And that's where the expectations were different, is we had that workshop time and it was fantastic. I tell you, that first time that you told us, okay, now mute your cameras. We're going to take 5-10 minutes. We want you to write out what we just talked about, and then we'll come together and review some of your guys's, responses or what you wrote. I was like giddy with excitement. I was like bouncing a little, like, okay. And I hit mute and I was like, I get to do this right now. I don't have to do this later and have an even busier day. Oh, I was just so thrilled to be able to work on it then. Of course, that was quickly followed by like the fear of, I might have to share my work with the group, but I feel like that's so important. Yes, it's scary. Yes, you're going to get criticism. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I want to know I pulled it off the right way the first time, that you're going to give me an A+. But that fear is good, because that's how I learned that day, what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. I can tell you to this day what you guys said. You tend to do this, focus more on this. And I keep that in my head all the time now to make sure I'm writing my messaging better. But yeah, that day was wonderful, because it was, so you asked about kind of what the day looked like. And it was, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's why it's important. Go work on it. And then another section of, okay, now we're going to talk about these types of stories and how you can use them, why you should use them these ways. Now go work on yours and let's review it together. And I don't know if it's a millennial thing or what, but knowing why we're using it a certain way or why you want that story told, that's really important to me too. And it helps me think about it in other contexts of how I could use it more in the future. So that's
well,
kind
that
of
workshop time is some of my favorite time too, of just getting to give that hands-on feedback and getting to watch just the progress that nonprofits and purposeful organizations go from, of taking their messaging from here to the next step and really just walking alongside you to do that and move it to the next level, and getting to watch you develop in that. And that's one of my favorite parts of the day, that we get to do throughout it.
Yeah. Well, and I was grateful too, because you guys had examples, because sometimes just hearing one story is hard because I just want to copy that one story. But for me, so having a few different examples or hearing other people's work too helped me kind of open my mind a bit of different ways to tell my own.
Yeah, and that's great. I think because it's fine to be able to just take someone else's copy and just change out the words to match your brand, right? But if you only have one template, that one template may not be the best template for you to use. But if we can show you 5 different examples, then you can figure out, oh, actually, I can come up with ideas for the third one way better than the others. So I'm going to start there, and that can give you a starting point for sure. I will say, it's easy to think. So we do one-on-one brand messaging strategy with organizations all the time, and it's a one-on-one process. It takes like 4 weeks, and it's kind of pricey, relatively speaking. And so a big part of the reason we developed this all-day intensive, and to do it in a group setting, was to be able to help more organizations at a lower price point. But it also added something that we don't get in that one-on-one work, which is the peer input. Because, Janelle and Courtney on our team, the people that we have doing brand messaging strategy are really smart and have really good input, but it's different to even be able to put your work out there and have 2 or 3 or 4 other people speak into it from their experiences. And I think there's an extra added value there that you just don't get any other way.
I love that when we took a lunch break, Katelyn, you and another woman who was on the call even stuck on to just chat.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a big advocate. I could sit in like a tractor convention. I do nothing with tractors. I know nothing about it, but I bet you I will learn something to apply to what I do. Like I am just an advocate for that. So yes, that peer time was great. And yes, I got talking with someone, and over our lunch break, we just kept talking and discussing, and it was fantastic. You make so many connections that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now for the real question, which is, the intensive was great. You had a great time. You learned some stuff. How have you implemented since then? What's the difference that it's made?
Yeah, we have mostly implemented it so far in our email marketing. We've got a lot of nurture campaigns that we're working on, and some that are already out there. More triggered emails with more intention versus just, we need some trigger emails because everyone says it's a good idea. Now we have some intention behind it. We're telling stories. We're helping people understand the problem and how we're providing a solution, which is, I think, just there's more meat to our emails now, really. But specifically, we've been using it for this webinar series. Our main 2 goals were, number 1, just to reconnect the community throughout the year with this series, and number 2, to help sell tickets to our conference, as a marketing tool that way. And we have seen, it's a brand new series, but I think we've seen such success because we have a well-strategized, well-written email campaign. And we're telling these stories. We're using the problem solution method that I learned, and really everything that I kind of wrote out at the intensive is a lot of what we're using for that campaign and for that strategy with marketing.
That's I remember, awesome. Katelyn, that I asked you to put me on your email list, and I have seen your emails evolve from being transactional and talking to your audience to really leading with stories and inviting your audience into the story and having a conversation with your audience. And so I've seen a huge transformation even from this side of just what it's done for your messaging.
Yeah, I know that was one of the key things you guys had for me, the feedback you gave for me is you're always talking to them. Just because you use the word you all the time doesn't mean they're relating to that email. It's less about just saying, oh, you need this and you want this and this is for you, and more about, addressing their problem and how you can help. And that was huge. But I'm glad to see you like it. Again, that was a nervous factor of like, Janelle wants on these emails. She's going to know if I'm doing well or not. But it has been good. We have seen such success. Honestly, when you talk numbers, if you're talking, our problem and solution, we really predicted 4 people to sign up for this in the beginning. My boss was like, oh, we're going to have 4 people. They're probably going to be SALT community members who are just like, we're here to help, like the parents, like, we'll support you in the new endeavor. Our first webinar, we had 141 people sign up and register. Our second webinar, we had 323. We just had our third webinar, and every episode, we get more and more people registering, attending the live chat that's there during the workshop or lesson that we're teaching. It's active. People are communicating. Questions are being asked for our leader teaching that webinar. And so we have seen that engagement that we want. And the fact that it's still growing, I think we can totally push to our email campaigns and how that's going with our nurturing emails.
You shouldn't have told me that before I come on your webinar in October. That makes me nervous.
So by then it's going to be huge and high expectations, Janelle. And no,
have over 1,000 people.
No, that's the thing I love, Katelyn, about what I know about your brand is you have a really, really great community. You just haven't, as you said, between conference events that you do every year, you haven't really had a lot of opportunities for that community to engage with each other and with you as the brand. And so I think it's awesome to facilitate more of that and to see the results, because that's how community happens, right? It's going to be a slow kind of build up. It's not all just going to happen at once. And so the fact that you're doing these events over and over again and you're seeing more people continue to engage just says a lot about you're speaking to the needs. People are finding out about it within the community, and people are engaging. That's awesome. That's what we want. So glad we could be part of helping that happen. So
I appreciate it. I know I came into this role very excited about that marketing aspect. Again, going back to how this all started, and I just didn't know how to connect those stories, and now I do. And I think that that's why it's been so successful. And it's stories that we can still talk about even when they jump into the chat for the webinars. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's not to throw you a curveball, but you said you've implemented most with emails and email nurtures, but maybe what are some other ways that you have either started to use or even thought about how to use the brand messaging that you developed at the brand messaging intensive?
Yeah. Oh, definitely social media.
Okay.
Because we talked so much about story and testimonial, one of my coworkers said the other day, he said, I just don't understand why what we're doing isn't working. Because we're throwing up graphics or pictures from conference with, again, more transactional copy. And I said, well, I can tell you, number one, we're not showing faces and we're not telling stories. I guess number two, you can see my hands. But we know now, like we know that we have stories to tell. We have people who have shared their experience. They want to help people understand how important this conference is, how much the webinars are helping them, monthly, every year. But we haven't been sharing that on social media yet. And that's what I'm excited to get to. It's easy to get caught up in, oh, well, I don't have the best graphics, or we don't have like a professional looking picture of this person for that. But I think what I've learned with social media is it really is, unfortunately, algorithms tell you it's quality over quantity when it comes to visuals, but people stop and they will read the copy on your posts. Even if it's a poorly pixelated picture or something, they will still read that copy. That matters to people. They take the time to read. You don't expect it, but they do. And so that's something I really hope to implement more of. Everything I learned at the intensive is into our social media and how I can use it with stories and reels and posts and take that the next step further, because that will get people then into those email campaigns that are a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, especially people who have already engaged with your brand at all, they will overlook a lot of design and usability issues. Not to say that you shouldn't solve those and fix those, but they'll overlook a lot of that if you say something that is actually compelling. Like the words that you use matter so much more than anything else. But you can have the most awesome designs and photos and everything, but if you're not saying something that actually is interesting, then they'll just scroll right by.
Oh, yes, that is so true.
Cool. Well, Janelle, do you have any other questions for Katelyn?
I don't think so. This is great, and I've loved hearing some of this feedback. I want to go back and listen to this live again and write down some of what you said. So thank you so much for sharing about your experience, and I've loved working with SALT to take your messaging to that next level. So you are
well. I'll do a little. Sorry, I'll do a little pitch if I can. If anyone watching is planning on going to the intensive or thinking about it, bring a notebook or very fast fingers to type your notes, because you'll want to come with an open mind, ready to learn from the others that you're listening to. And then, of course, I would come knowing a little bit of history of your company. Again, I was new, 5 months in this job. And I remember one big thing we talked about was origin story. So come knowing a little bit of how your company started, why you do what you do, because you are going to write about it, but it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's perfect. The perfect way to kind of wrap up there. And we do have our next brand messaging intensive coming up, which you can find out about at louderAgency.com/BMI for brand messaging intensive. That'll take you to the page. It's coming up on the 18th of this month. So that is just a couple of weeks away, I guess literally 2 weeks away. So you can sign up there. And if you want to learn more about our 3 stories, Janelle and I actually did a live at the end of last week on Friday that kind of gave an overview of the 3 stories. It was on the tail end of our webinar, but you can get the replay of the webinar, the full webinar, at louderAgency.com/3storieswebinar, hyphenated. We should probably make an easier link than that, but for now, that's what it is. So you can go there, you can opt in, you can watch that full webinar for free and learn the whole framework that we use to help organizations just like SALT to really lock in their brand messaging. So cool. Anything else to add?
Kelsey looks very excited, and she also loves learning the why. So I kind of want to come to the next one just so I can meet Kelsey and work on stories with her.
Yeah, well, Kelsey,
thanks for joining us this morning, Kelsey, in the chat. So
yes. Kelsey is very excited, and she'll be joining us on the 18th. Hopefully, actually, we're working out those details. And I'm probably going to do a separate little email intro between the two of you, Katelyn and Kelsey, because I think you all should probably connect if you haven't already.
Awesome.
So, well, cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Katelyn. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning. As always, thank you, Janelle. And Janelle and I, we will be back live on Tuesday of next week with Harris III from Story, which is another community and conference based out of Nashville. So we'll be going live with him on Tuesday. And then at this exact same time next Thursday, Janelle and I will be going live. Topic TBD, but I think I want to cover 3 different ways to assess the copy on your homepage that we use and give people those very practical 3 different ways to figure out. I think we've got 3 that we can use. Just 3. I think that will be plenty for us to talk about.
I know. It's a good start right there.
It's a good start. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys again. Really appreciate you. And we'll talk again soon.